So you've got a herniated disc, now what? My name is Dr. Richard Ulm and I treat disc herniations every single day. And in this video I'm going to talk about an explanation of what exactly is involved with the disc herniation, symptoms you may be experiencing, prognosis, and most importantly, treatment options. So that by the end of this video you're not only going to know what is involved with your condition, but what you can be doing at home to make it better. So what is a disc herniation or a disc bulge? There's actually several different kinds, but before I get into that, I want to talk about just the anatomy of a disc and what exactly the disc does for us. So the disc is actually sort of a spongy-like material that sits in between the bones of the back, and it's really important because it does two things. One, it allows us to have more range of motion than if the spine was just one big stiff bone, and two, it actually absorbs the shock that we're experiencing when we get out of the car, when we're running, lifting weights, whatever. And the disc herniations, or the disc bulges that we're going to talk about, are just different variations of a breakdown of the anatomy of the disc. And the disc actually, really has two critical pieces to it. It functions a lot like a water balloon with rubber bands wrapped around it. And I'll explain why that's important here in a second. But there's two pieces of anatomy that I want to cover. The first one is the nucleus pulposus. And that's a fluid, almost toothpaste-like material sitting right in the middle of the disc. And on the outside, it's surrounded by rings, these cartilaginous, stiff, really, really thick rubber bands that we call the annulus fibrosus. And when you have the disc with the fluid in the middle, and you have gravity kind of pushing down here, what it actually does is it actually pushes that fluid out in all directions against the annular fibers, and they actually stretch out. That's a good thing. That's how you actually absorb shock. So if I stand here and sort of bounce, that shock that's going in there, going through my spine, is absorbed by that outward pushing nucleus pulposus and the stretching of those annular fibers. Where it becomes a problem is whether with prolonged sitting or even lifting or something, where you overstretch those, tear them, and even break them completely. So now let's talk about the different kinds of bulges that you can have. The first one, a disc bulge, is going to be just a broad out pushing of the disc. That's not very specific. It can go all the way across. It can even be on one side or the other, but it's very broad. That's essentially where you have the nuclear material here in the middle, and it's actually sort of pushing out this way, and it's stretching out those rubber bands, right? And it's going to be just a general, it's not very specific here. This is the early stages of it. And the next one is going to be what we call a protrusion. This is going to be a little bit more focal, as you can see here. And now this is where you've got the stretching of the annular fibers is a lot more focal, and so now it's usually going to be more one-sided. That's a little bit more severe than this one. The next one is going to be an extrusion, and an extrusion is when the nuclear material here is actually pushed out and it's broken through all of the annular fibers. So while the first two were just different degrees of stretching of those annular fibers, the extrusion is when you've actually torn them and broken that open. The last one is going to be a sequestration, and that's when you have sort of like some of that jelly-like material in the middle has actually broken off away from the disc and maybe sitting in the spinal canal or even right next to the nerve root. So those are the four different types of herniations or bulges that you may experience. Now let's have Dr. Muse take you through symptoms and prognosis.
So Dr. Ulm just finished up going over a few different forms of disc pathology. And as you may guess, there could be a wide variety of symptoms that you could experience given that there's different forms of it. So you could be experiencing things like achiness, it could be tightness, it could be numbness and tingling, or even weakness. Now, that could be experienced anywhere from the low back, maybe even into the thigh, or even sometimes all the way down into the foot. All of these things have a good prognosis generally. We can treat these things, but there are a few of those symptoms that we should talk about a little bit more. One of them being symptoms that travel all the way down the leg, kind of like your classic sciatica symptoms. Another one is weakness. If there's weakness in the affected limb, then we need to be sure that that is returning to its proper status. Now, once again, regardless if we have those more severe symptoms like the radiating symptoms or the weakness, these are still treatable things. Now, we're not going to cover in this video what we would do here in CCRC to treat you, but instead, here in a moment, we're going to give you some tools, some tricks to be using at home to, one, increase or improve the prognosis of your symptoms, and then two, get you back to doing what you love doing in your own life.
So now to the good part. Now we want to talk about things that you can be doing at home to improve and or abolish your symptoms altogether. And the way that we tackle things here is really two parts. So of course, you've got the exercises and the therapy stuff that we'll cover in a second, but the most important part are what we call lifestyle modifications, essentially avoiding the things that aggravate it in the first place. When it comes to disc injuries, there's two things that mainly aggravate it. The first is going to be bending and twisting, so lifting up heavy objects, things like that. The other one is going to be prolonged sitting. And for a lot of you guys that have desk jobs or maybe you have a long commute to work, this is where you're going to start noticing a lot of your symptoms. And the best thing that you can do for disc injuries in most cases is just avoid sitting as best you can. So the first thing is going to be get a standing desk, or the best option is going to be get a standing desk. And a standing desk is going to allow you to stay out of that position. You're going to be upright on your legs, moving and wiggling around a little bit, staying out of a position in which you actually get your symptoms. So this is a fantastic option. There's many of cheap options that you guys have that you can get online and find really, really good, affordable options that you can put in your house or maybe in your office. If that's not an option for you though, you're going to need to take regular breaks. And early on, if your disc is really, really aggravated, then you're going to have to take breaks very, very frequently. And if you can just stay out of a position, that sitting position that's giving you your symptoms, it's going to heal much, much faster and you'll get the symptom free much quicker. Another option that we think is really, really, really valuable is going to be using some sort of a back support. The one that we prescribe or suggest here is going to be called the Mckenzie roll. Now, there's lots of options out there for you, and I think some of them might work. This is the one that we think is the best one. Now, we of course sell this here, but you can get this on Amazon or online. It's a Mckenzie roll. And the Mckenzie roll is going to essentially provide you very, very focused support in the area of your low back that's getting aggravated. So when you sit down, whether it's in the car or at work, you're going to slide this behind your back and kind of collapse into that roll, having the roll supporting the back, preventing you from getting into that position in which you get symptoms. So standing desk is your best option, regular breaks is your next best option, and I think whether you have a standing desk or not, if your commute's longer than say 15 or 20 minutes, I say this is a great option for you. So now let's talk about some exercises. We're going to go through two powerful exercises that we use in this office every single day to treat disc herniations.
First, we're going to go over a very simple exercise called the Pressup, and we're using this on a daily basis with our patients. It's going to look very similar to the Cobra pose that we see in yoga. The emphasis of this, however, is we're going to try to get these low back joints moving with proper motion. Now, as we go through this, we don't want to be using these back muscles too much to perform the movement. What I'm going to have Dr. Ulm do is place his hands on either side of his face. He's going to do all of the work with his triceps while the back stays relaxed. So first I'm going to have him try to press himself all the way up, try to get to fully extended elbows. Pause at the top for maybe a 1 count, trying to let that back relax, and then we're going to go back down. Now, this is not a sustained stretch. We're not just going to stay up in the top of that. We're going to do this rhythmically. So he's going to come up, pause for that 1 count, back down. And we may go for rounds of 10, maybe 15, however many that we come to find that we need. Good. Now, if he goes all the way back down, let's assume that maybe you have something actively going on with your low back. When you first try this exercise, you may find that you have some restriction in that motion and you can't quite get all the way up to that fully extended position. Maybe there's some pinching in that low back. That's okay, as long as that goes away when you go back down. And then what you'll find, hopefully, is as you repeat this motion, that motion is going to start to clean up in that low back. He's going to be able to gradually get all the way up to that extended elbow position. So this is a great exercise to restore that proper mobility to that lumbar spine. But now we're going to go over a move to further stabilize the area and further shut off these low back muscles.
All right, the last exercise that we want to show you is really an exercise to help stabilize and protect the spine. The press up that we just went over is going to help mobilize the spine, get the joints and the disc moving like they're supposed to. Now it's a matter of stabilizing and protecting that spine. And to do that, we need to teach you how to create a force called intra-abdominal pressure. An intra-abdominal pressure is an outward pushing force inside your belly that stabilizes the spine from the front. So what creates that force is actually your diaphragm that sits between your rib cage and your abdominal wall, or sorry, your abdomen, where you have the diaphragm sitting in there. When the diaphragm contracts, it pushes the abdominal contents out against the abdominal wall, down against the pelvic floor, and most importantly, backwards against the spine. And that force pushing backwards against the spine is what stabilizes the spine in a healthy, high-functioning human. So the exercise that we do, that we like to start with, is going to sort of be a back breathing exercise where you're just going to practice building that pressure in the belly, feeling it support your spine. So we're going to take Dr. Muse, we're going to have him sit back, get on his hands and his knees. Now we want to be careful. You can sit all the way back into this position, but if you actually have an active disc herniation, you might notice that getting in this position is uncomfortable, maybe even painful, and we don't want that. So this exercise is more of a relaxation technique, trying to get your back more stable and getting those big back muscles to relax a little bit because they may be clamped on because the back's in pain. So what we would do with this one is we can actually have him walk his elbows forward a little bit, and he can just be sitting in this position where he feels a gentle stretch here, but it's not painful. In this position now, he needs to practice pushing his belly out in all directions. And the two areas that we want to focus on are, one, the lower abdominal wall. So all the way down by your pelvis there, you want to feel that belly push out against the thighs in this position. And two, you want to then feel that pressure push back against the spine. That's the critical thing to feel because that's that pressure stabilizing the spine from the inside. Now, you can first start with just pushing the belly out. That's a little bit more easy or simple than taking a breath in, but you'll ultimately need to incorporate that into your breathing cycle. So you can start practicing taking a breath in and filling the belly up and pushing it out simultaneously on that breath in, which might feel like learning how to rub your belly and pat your head, but with practice you'll get better and better and better at it. And as you improve in that critical skill, your back muscles will relax and your back will be more stable and your pain will start subsiding. And as you get good at it in this position, once it feels comfortable, now you can sit all the way back and keep working back farther and farther and farther, never getting in a position that actually produces your symptoms. But you want to just use this exercise to teach yourself how to create intra-abdominal pressure and get the back to start relaxing so that you can get into this position here. So those are two great exercises. The other one is Dr. Muse talked about. You can use, in sets of 10, maybe even 15. With this one, I like breaking this up into sort of 5 to 10 breaths, where you can even practice the breathing for, say 3 minutes in the morning and the evening. But with this one, you can actually do this as often as you want, as long as you're being safe and you're being careful and you're trying to make sure that the back is not getting aggravated every time you do it. You can do it as often as you want throughout the day. All that's going to happen is your back is going to get a little bit more relaxed and your spine is going to become more stable. So hopefully you found the information in this video useful. We talked about the different kinds of disc herniations that you may have had. We talked about symptoms you can be experiencing and even the prognosis. Most importantly, we covered things that you guys can be doing at home to improve and hopefully even abolish your symptoms altogether.
But we also want to make sure you guys are being safe. If for whatever reason your symptoms aren't improving or even getting worse, then be sure to reach out to your favorite therapist or physician to be sure that you guys get evaluated properly.
And if you're really concerned, you can actually give us a call, 614-389-4473, and we can actually get one of the physicians on the phone to answer questions you might have, or you could click on the link below, columbuscrc.com. Best of luck.